This is harder than I thought it was gonna be. But I'm gonna have to do it. Let's talk about me. I've been thinking about making this video for a while. This is the first time I've gotten time to actually film it. So here it goes. There are things that I need to get off my chest. And talking to people isn't exactly my strongest suit. So, I'm gonna record it instead. For as long as I can remember, I've always been different. I've always had things on my mind, but felt never I could explain it to people properly, and with everything going on in my life right now, I think this is probably the most opportune time to do anything. Talk about anything. You know, what's on my mind. I used to believe let's start from the beginning, actually. I guess from a very young age, I knew what path I was on, where I was going. But as time progressed and my knowledge grew, it became a little more clear that what I thought was true. I've never exactly been part of the norm. Nor have I ever wanted to be. I viewed my life as something precious, something I can hold on to as long as I can keep it. My earliest memory of my life, ironically enough, is of my dad beating my mom to a bloody pulp. But since then, I've wisened up. I've seen things that kind of confirm and understand my suspicions. I've been alone a long time. People come in and out of my life daily. I've never stuck around in a place long enough to make long-term friends. The ones that I consider long-term friends don't even talk to me anymore. My life has been a roller coaster. A lot of twists, turns, ups and downs. But the kicker of the roller coaster is when it goes to loop-de-loop. Where you tend to go back for a bit before you go forward. And it's all in one big circle. here are the things that I need to get off my chest. It started in 3rd grade. I went to a school called El Dorado Elementary School. I lived down the street. It wasn't too far. It was walking distance. Me and my brother would walk there all the time. 3rd grade. I met the first girl I could ever call my lover. I guess lover's a strong word. I liked her strongly. Her name was Rosemary. I never caught her last name, and if I did, I forgot it by now. But I do remember her first name. You never forget your first love. Rosemary. I even remember what I did. I had this friend named David. He was kind of heavyset for a kid in 3rd grade. He was a good friend of mine at the time, and I wrote her a note, as young kids do, and I had him, because I was too chicken to hand it to her myself rather than say it to her. That's why I wrote the note. I handed it to David, and he told me he would hand it to her. I told him to meet me in the boys' bathroom. He did. And I told him what to do, and he gave it to her. After school, she handed me the note back, and she said, "Is this from you?" Like a total idiot and chicken, I denied it. I said, "No, it's not from me. I don't know who gave this to you." She's like, "Well, David said you wrote this for me." And I said, "Well, I don't know what David was saying. He's a little crazy." She then walked away, smiled at me, and I never saw her again. Reason being because I moved away. See, when I went to El Dorado, I lived with my dad. But when I moved away, I went to live with my grandma. Because my dad was put in jail. By this time, it wasn't the first time it's happened. El Dorado was at least the 4th elementary school I've been to, and it wasn't a surprise when he was hauled off to jail and I had to change schools, change location. I then went to Park Lane for my 4th and 5th years of school. Sutherland down the street, I went there for a bit. I'm not gonna say life with grandma was rough, but it wasn't bad either. I mean, I had bad times, but there was a lot of good times there too. Gave me time to get to know my grandma, so I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of the time I spent with my grandma, but I just feel like I was robbed of time with my father. I felt like my father was robbed of time with me. Because he never really got to know me, despite his accusations of knowing me. Fact is, I feel if my father was around more, he would have caught the signs before I did. It took me 16 years to find out my real identity. And I didn't see it until I started looking back. The loop-de-loop on the roller coaster, right? So we're going to flash forward from 1st grade to about, I want to say it was, or 3rd grade to about 5th grade. I'm going to say it's about 5th grade, just before middle school. I think it was 5th grade. I'm not quite sure what number it was, but I was going to Park Lane at the time, whatever grade I was in. There were these 2 kids whose names escaped me at the time. I think it was like Eric or something, I don't know. But they were 2 black kids. And they would always used to make fun of me, pick on me, But it was like friendly kid stuff. But at the time when you're a kid and you get picked on, you're like the shortest one there. I was the shortest one there. kind of gets to you, you know. And I was a very emotional kid. I cried a lot with the slightest bit of insult at me, and it's fine. I've been hearing insults about me my entire life. Nowadays, they'll just rub off of me like water on a seal's back, but back then, I took it to heart, you know. It really hurt me inside that people would say that kind of stuff to me. But yeah, these kids, they would constantly pick on me, and I broke. See, I've been drawing since I was 8 years old, and my art was very vivid and graphic. And I drew a picture in class of the kids pointing a gun at me. Because it's what I felt they would do, you know. It got wind and hit the principal's office, and they called me in, and they're like, "Why'd you draw this?" And I said, "Well, so-and-so and so-and-so have been picking on me, and this is what I feel like they would do to me." They were called in, and they got in trouble, you know. It was about 2 years later. We were at Sutherland at this time, and I met the kids again, and I talked to him, and he was like, "Hey, man, it's all water under the bridge, man. It's cool." And we became friends, ironically enough. Isn't that funny? But again, we moved. Now, this is nothing considerably to my father. He didn't come back. We just moved the location from Stockton to Manteca, my bad. From Stockton to Manteca. Bigger house, you know, because my aunt got married. And I thought, okay, this is going to be good for us, you know. My aunt's finally married after so long. She'd be good. We changed churches. I then went to Brock Elliott Elementary School. Or was it middle school? I'm not sure. It was a weird school. I think it was elementary, yeah. Oh, because it was Park Lane Elementary. Because at Park Lane only went up to, what, like 4th grade or something? I don't know. Anyway, I went to Brock Elliott Elementary School, and first day of school, I met who would have potentially become my very first girlfriend, Gabrielle Spencer. We hit it off immediately, you know. We became fast friends. We talked all the time. This was 5th grade. I think it was. Yeah, 5th grade. It was 5th grade. We weren't in the same class at this time, but we did talk a lot in the beginning of school before the gates opened. We would talk in the cafeteria during breakfast time, and it was great. 6th grade, we finally got permission to use lockers. And again, there she was. We talked in the beginning of school before the gates opened, and we went to the class we were supposed to go to, because at this time we were in the same class. But again, because fate is a cruel and vicious thing, it likes to play tricks on me. Right before I seal the deal, right before I work up the courage to actually ask the girl out, my Uncle Sid decides I'm not fit to live in his house anymore. Now, of course, this is right after my grandma dies, and I'm in an emotional wreck, and everybody is just seeping this. Alright, so where was I? I was interrupted for a bit. That's what the jump and cut was for. Yes, Gabrielle Spencer. Like a cruel fate, I had to move again. Went back with my dad for a short bit. You know, throughout my life I've been kicked out and thrown around. I've been living with a bunch of people. And one thing that I've always taken away from that is that Everyone's different. Everyone has a different way of looking at things. But they all have one thing in common, and that's they can never really stand me for too long. Everyone has a limit for me, and each person is different, but me as a person, they tend to get tired of me. For whatever reason, I don't know. You know, family is supposed to stick by you through thick and thin no matter what happens. They're supposed to help you when you're feeling down, you're feeling low. But my family has never made me feel like I can talk to them, you know, hence the video. My family, and I'm talking my family, like where I'm from, not any extension to family like my step siblings or anything like that. I'm talking my family, which is why always at family functions I would always freeze up and be quiet, because my family never made me feel like I was part of the family. I stayed with my cousin Juanita for a bit. I went to a school right down the street. I think it was George W. Bush. Yeah, George W. Bush. I went to George W. Bush. I was only there for about 4 months, 4 or 5 months, barely even a year. I went to another place, another school, John F. Kennedy. I was there for about 3, 4, 5 months. Didn't last very long. Dad was hauled off to jail again. Lived with my Uncle Danny for a bit too. Went to a school by there. Stayed there 3 months at most. 4, I don't know. I never counted. I guess the moral of the story is I never stuck around long enough to get to know anybody, and I've never stuck around long enough to have lifelong friends. Except for one time. One time I did stay pretty long. I was back in Stockton. Dad got an apartment above Market, Simon's Market to be exact. And I made a friend down the street. Dad happened to be friends with his dad, and we hit it off. His name was Russell. And we were fast friends. My brother Mikey, he would always come along, tag along with us. And Russell, I remember when we went in Russell's house, he had these snakes. It was a python and then an anaconda, I believe they were. And he had this dope rope swing in the backyard with a tire on it. And we would play in his house, in his backyard. And Mikey, he had this friend who lived on the same block. His name was Moses. We'd go over to his house and play his N64. And those are good times, but again, as good of times they were, they didn't last. And once again, I move away. But back to the story at hand. When I moved away from Gabrielle Spencer, I went to live with my dad again. At that point, I was fed up. I was mad. Angry. I mean, the one chance I had at getting my first girlfriend, and slips from it. Stolen, I believed. But of course, I bounced back. Moved around again, bounced a bunch around at times, and again, it just constantly happened, moving, and it didn't stop. Eventually I got used to it and said, fuck it, I'm not going to be here long enough. I came back to visit my sisters, and when I kept in touch with Gabrielle, because at the time she went to the same school as me, even though she's 2 years older. She went to the same school as me, and she happened to have met Gabrielle, and she went to the dance. Gabrielle was there. She saw my sister because she knew her, and she asked, "Where's Devin? Where is he?" I thought I'd see him here. Devin moved away. Devin was forced to move away. Devin was forced to leave everyone he's ever loved and cared about again. And this time it hurt him. Hurt him bad. But Devin was fine on the outside, it seemed. Devin hid his emotions because he knew how to do it well. I did know how to do it well. When my grandma died, I barely shed a tear. Until 3 years later. 3 years later. Isn't that something, right? I mean, I felt the loss inside, but I shut everyone out. I barely talked, barely interacted, and 3 years go by, and it comes flooding out like a goddamn waterfall. And like a waterfall, rushing water, you can't really stop it by plugging the hole. No, the force is too strong, so you just have to let it go until it's empty. That's what I did. And I cried. And I cried. And I cried. Now during this time, I'm living with my mom because my dad sent me to visit her in Texas for the summer. And it was only supposed to be for the summer. When we came back, Dad was living with a new family. In a new place that I didn't know. Same old routine, right? New family, new siblings, right? At first, I didn't really speak to them. I was very distant, but I learned to open up again. I learned to be happy. I posted a picture not too long ago of one of those happy times, and I do miss those times. Those are great times. But again, like clockwork, comes back around at some point, right? My dad decides he's not in this position to take care of me and my brother anymore. So he sends us to live with our mom permanently. Tells us it's another visit, though. But it's permanently. And don't let him tell the story, because he'll say he told us that we were living with them permanently. But I recall the situation very vividly, and he told me that we were only going to visit again. That visit turned to 5 years. Yeah. I was 14. 4 years, my bad. 4 years. Anyway. So we moved to Hawaii to live with my mom, because she married into military, so she moved from Texas to Hawaii because of the duty stations and what to have it. So we're in Hawaii now. New middle school. New stepdad. A lot of things to get used to, you know. And at first, it was fun, he laid down the ground rules, and I was like, yeah, great, perfect, we'll do fine. My brother, I love him to death. No matter what comes between us, me and my brother are always going to be close, whether I like it or not. No matter what he's done to me, me and my brother will always be close. Can't shake the bond that we have. We've been together too long. But the bond between me and my sister is a little bit thinner. We lived together for, I want to say 5 years tops together, under one roof, collectively. I want to say 5 years. It's been about that long. And after that, they didn't really see me much. Family occasions, certain parties, and then nothing. I tried to keep in touch with my family, but I'm not very much of a conversationalist on any platform. But I had been getting better, So we're in Hawaii. come across this dude. He draws in my class in my new middle school, and his name was Devin Mack. He was a great guy. Is a great guy, hopefully. I haven't talked to him in years. Devin Mack. One of the first friends I made at that new middle school, which name eludes me, by the way. For some reason, I don't remember the name of that middle school. Yeah, I met Devin Mack there, and he was a great friend, although he was always very distant. I understood he had friends there that he wanted to hang out with. That was just something in the back burner, someone he talked to in class, someone who shared a mutual love for art, but again, he never really paid attention to me. It's just fine. Because I figured, hey, I'm not going to be here long, right? Because, I thought I was just visiting, but when I started going to school, it did raise a red flag, but, I didn't think anything of it. I then met this dude. This dude who turned out to be one of my best friends that I've ever had. And in typical fashion, I fuck it up. And for that, Austin, I'm really sorry. Austin Talent. Met him in middle school. We had gym class together, although we were in two different classes. We had the period at the same time. So, me and Austin, we became fast friends, and it started with one word. Smurf. Oddly enough, Smurf, right? We would joke around, and we would replace curse words with Smurf, or like insult words with Smurf, like, I would Smurf you, man. You're Smurfing awesome. Get the Smurf out of here, stuff like that. And it was like an inside joke just between the two of us, and it was fun. But again, he had his own friends, and I was a bit of a loner. Aside from him, I didn't really talk to anybody else other than him and Devin Mack. Spent a lot of time in the library, reading books, typical loner fashion. Read a lot of Rick Riordan, Cassandra or Cassandra Clare, my bad. Typical R.L. Stein for a bit. Got real into books over there. Then I flunked middle school and I had to take summer school classes. Those were fun, but don't really want to touch up on those subjects. Long story short, I made it into high school, freshman, starting the new year, and Austin's there. He's there, and he's still a best friend. Took drawing and painting one. Mr. Daguba, great teacher. If you go to Leilehua High School in Hawaii, in Hawaii, great teacher, Mr. Daguba. I hope he's still doing well. Yeah, a lot of things on my chest, a lot of things. I think the biggest thing on my chest right now is regret. There are a lot of things that I regret, especially during my time in Hawaii, but most importantly, my time in Virginia. My time in Hawaii did open my eyes, though, so I'm going to talk about that for a bit. High school, freshman year. Made a lot of good friends there, new ones. Some of them were from the middle school I went to. Some of them were new. But a lot of them, I don't think they actually considered me their friend. Never really hung out with them on a regular basis, other than Austin. And another person whose name eludes me. Maybe his name is Eric, I don't know. For some reason, the name Eric is in my head. It's floating around in there. Anyway, high school. 16 years old. I had my first official girlfriend. Unofficially, I guess, though. Relationship only lasted a week. I don't even know if you can really call that a relationship, though. Although now I have the shortest record for a relationship. One day, believe it or not, one day. Shortest relationship ever recorded, right? I don't think there's ever been a shorter one. And if there has, brutal. It's shorter than a day. An hour? Can't even really call that a relationship. It's a get together, right? Anyway, first relationship. Her name, I don't even want to remember it. She did me dirty, you know. First relationship, I didn't know what I was doing. My brother knew what I was doing more than me because his first kiss was at 6. Believe it or not. My brother had better game than me. I guess I figured, you know, if I was the nice guy, if I was the person that everyone needed instead of wanted, they'd like me better, you know? I built myself up to be that nice guy, but at the same time I was going through things that contradicted the nice guy term. Around the same time, I got into cross-dressing. Got me into a lot of trouble with my mom because, you see, the only feminine clothes I could access were hers at the time. Didn't have a job, so didn't have money of my own to buy my own clothes, despite the protests of my mom and Travis telling me to get one so I could buy my own clothes. How it would be so nice to have my own clothes. Yeah, I got it at that time. I didn't need to hear it 50 million times. But of course, like always, I screw the pooch. He told me to stop, didn't stop, didn't want to stop, couldn't stop, whatever the explanation was at the time. 16. I didn't know what was going on with me, and to be honest, I didn't really care. I just liked the way it felt. You know, I started experimenting with the bras, you know, seeing if I could fabricate my own breasts. I was 16, I was very creative, I'm an artist. Over the years, I developed an interest in ways, cool ways, nice ways. My mom eventually gave in and gave me some of the clothes she never wore, which was nice, because then I had my own clothes, you know, to try on and wear, and it was great. 17 I am now, at this point. But it wasn't enough anymore. And I did something that goes in right into the regrets column. I did something that